Exposed, how a snubbed girl turned 1 billion into an incredible life-changing journey. Emily stood at her booth, taking a deep breath as the scent of caramel apples filled the air at the annual fall fair. The vibrant oranges and reds of autumn leaves painted the landscape around her, embodying the beauty that felt far removed from her everyday life. A girl from a struggling single-parent household, she had lived in the shadows of her small Midwestern town, her dreams dimmed by the weight of constant ridicule. Yet today, she was ready to unveil her daring idea, a chance to transform her handmade crafts into something grander. All her life, Emily had been the subject of gossip and doubt. Her classmates, wrapped in their privilege, often dismissed her as just another girl with impossibly big dreams. But Emily nurtured hope in the cracks of despair, pouring her heart into every stitch and paint stroke as she crafted unique pieces that she believed could resonate with the world. At times, it felt like stitching together her soul. In the quiet moments, she remembered the sacrifices her mother made to keep them afloat. The endless hours balancing 2 jobs just to put food on the table. A tightness in her chest would remind her of their struggles, a stark contrast to the supposedly joyful lives of her peers. Now, as she saw familiar faces at the fair, she felt the old wounds bubbling back to the surface. Those who had bullied her were surrounding her, and her heart raced with uncertainty, but Emily wanted this moment to be different. She poured every ounce of her ambition into a vision, hoping to transform not just her own life, but the lives of those around her. With steely resolve and trembling hands, she stepped onto the stage. Her voice quivered as she spoke about her products, how they could be more than just crafts, but a part of a sustainable movement. A chance for empowerment through creativity. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but just as she shared her dream, the laughter began. It was a low murmur at first, then louder jeering voices filled the air, cutting through her thoughts like knives. She glanced at her best friend, someone she had trusted, only to see betrayal reflected in their eyes as they turned away in contempt. In that crushing moment, Emily's heart shattered, her idea stolen and ridiculed. As she stood there, exposed and vulnerable, the beauty of the fall leaves outside fell into stark contrast against the tumult inside her. The realization hit her like a tidal wave: she had not just lost an idea, she had lost faith in her community to embrace anyone who dared be different. Yet, within that despair was a flicker of determination. Not today, she thought. Not anymore. It was time for her voice to be heard, time to advocate not only for her dreams but for every single person who felt constantly overlooked. She would challenge the very prejudices that had defined her existence. As she prepared to speak again, a sense of fire ignited in her heart. Would the crowd listen this time? Would she be able to turn their doubt into belief? There was a deafening silence in the arena, and in that moment pregnant with possibility, Emily felt hope swell within her, ready to break free. What would she say, and could it truly change her life? Emily's heart raced as her eyes scanned the sea of faces before her. They were the same people who had laughed at her just moments ago, some with smirks of superiority, others casting pitying glances her way. But in that silence, a silence thick with tension, she felt something shift inside her. The doubt she had carried was fading, replaced by something more powerful: resolve. She inhaled deeply, the scent of caramel apples wafting through the air mingling with her swirling emotions. I refuse to back down, she thought, her heartbeat steadying slightly. I'm here for a reason. With renewed strength, Emily leaned into the microphone, her voice rising above the quiet murmur of the crowd. I know many of you have dismissed my work, she began, earnestness radiating from her words, but I want to share something with you. She pointed to a colorful tapestry hung behind her, each thread telling a story that was its own kind of magic. This isn't just a piece of fabric, it's a reflection of my story, my journey. Every stitch, every design is infused with love, with resilience. It represents the struggle of raising myself and my mother fighting tirelessly to build a better life. Her words poured out like a stream of life, unfiltered and raw. She saw eyes widening, caught by surprise. I've spent years feeling small. Tired of being ignored, tired of being ridiculed, Emily continued, her voice gaining momentum. Encouragement sparked within her as the crowd began to shift. Some leaned in, curiosity woven into their expressions. But today, I stand here not just as the snubbed girl from a small town. I stand here as proof that we can rise above it. She could see the disbelief in familiar faces, but also something else, a glimmer of understanding. What if every one of us has the power to change our narrative? What if we work together instead of tearing each other down? A hush fell over the crowd, the weight of her words settling into their hearts that it felt like a dam had broken inside her. This is more than crafts, this is about empowerment and sustainability. We are here to uplift our community, to create a movement. To show that creativity can heal and bring us together. Emily's throat tightened, the emotion almost overwhelming. But she pushed through. I have been overlooked, and I'm not alone. But I refuse to let anyone silence me, anymore. If my story resonates with you, if this idea does, then let us join hands. Let us build something extraordinary together. As she finished, there was a moment of silence that felt longer than any she had ever experienced. Then, it erupted, soft claps at first, then a wave of applause that reverberated through the fairground. Shocked expressions turned into encouraging smiles. One by one, people began to rise, their clapping growing until it felt as though the ground beneath her was pulsating with support. Tears stung her eyes, blending with the laughter and cheers around her. This time, she was met with a different kind of recognition. A sense of belonging, yet, as she smiled through the tears, an unexpected voice from the back shouted, "You think we'll believe you? You think we'll really join you?" Emily's heart dropped, but she squared her shoulders, feeling the fire inside reignite. "Let me show everyone what I can do," she cried, heart racing once again. As the applause continued, a seed of determination took root within her, but just as Emily was ready to embrace her triumph, another voice rose, a familiar one, dripping with disdain. "Remember who you really are, none of this will change a thing." Suddenly, uncertainty clouded her resolve. Could she truly transform her life? Or was she still just that overlooked girl, destined to remain in the shadows? As the crowd began to quiet, she realized the stakes were even higher than she had imagined. What would her next move be? Would she crumble under the weight of the past, or would she rise to face it head-on? Emily felt the air around her thicken with doubt, as if a fog had rolled in, blurring the bright colors of her dreams. She had laid herself bare in front of them, her fears, her hopes, the truth woven into every thread of that tapestry, but that one voice, her old rival's voice, teased at her core. The memory of being dismissed and belittled gnawed at her, each taunt echoing in her mind like a reminder of life's harsh lessons. She took a deep breath, her chest rising with determination. "I am not who you think I am," she declared, her booming voice piercing through the silence. "I've spent years being defined by others. But today, I define myself." The spectators shifted, some glancing at one another, unsure of how to respond to this empowered version of the girl they once mocked. But Emily noticed a gradual change, a flicker of recognition in their eyes, a longing for connection sparking where once there was only indifference. "I'm not just a dreamer," she continued, her confidence building, "I'm a doer. I stand before you, not as a symbol of failure, but as proof that every story, even the toughest ones, can lead us to triumph." The eagerness in her voice turned into fire, igniting something in those listening. What if we took our pasts and used them as stepping stones? What if we built a community that turns pain into purpose? Faces in the crowd began to transform, skepticism shifting to contemplation. A few brave souls stepped forward, hesitant smiles replacing the earlier scorn. There was power in vulnerability, Emily realized, and people were beginning to see that. Together, we can transform not only our lives but our entire town, she urged, passion flowing through her like a raging river. Let us create a space where everyone feels they belong, where we uplift one another instead of tearing each other down. The more she spoke, the more her voice grew in authority and light. Something opened up within her, a door to the possibilities she had always dreamed of but felt too timid to pursue. As her transformation blossomed, Emily saw the crowd gradually soften, their walls lowering, but then came a ripple of uncertainty again, this time from her own heart. What if it was all just a dream? What if her past truly was a chain she couldn't break? Glancing at the tapestry, Emily absorbed its colors again, vivid reds and soothing blues that told the story of her struggle. Her spirit awakened. I will not let your doubts drown me, she declared, eyes scanning the faces now blooming with curiosity and hope. This isn't just my fight, it's ours. Are you with me? At that moment, the true magic of connection sparked, igniting fire in her audience. One voice rose above the rest, an older woman, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Yes. We're here. We believe in you. And suddenly, the applause picked up again, echoing through the fairground, but this time it was different. It was more than just clapping, it felt like the unfolding of a new chapter, a chapter filled with promise, support, and a shared journey. Emboldened, Emily stepped back, taking in the swell of unity before her. She realized this was just the beginning of something profound, but with each heartbeat, the question lingered like a shadow in her mind: what will it take for me to truly believe in myself? Little did she know, the answer was about to present itself in a way she never could have anticipated. Emily stood on the stage, her heart still racing. The applause felt like a warm blanket, wrapping around her, soothing the remnants of doubt that clung to her like shadows. For a brief moment, she reveled in the feeling of acceptance. But then, as quickly as the warmth spread, a chill crept back in. Would this moment last, or was it simply a misplaced spark in the great tapestry of her life? From the audience, she caught a glimpse of the older woman who had cheered her on. Her eyes were filled with something Emily was still trying to understand, perhaps hope, or perhaps a reflection of her own fears. Whatever it was, it only fueled Emily's resolve. Together, we can do anything, she thought as she scanned the crowd, now filled with faces that were beginning to awaken to their own potential. As the applause faded, Emily felt the air shift again. The weight of expectation loomed over her, and she knew she had to keep the momentum alive. We need a plan, she whispered to herself, her thoughts racing. If the crowd had found a spark of connection, she had to fan it into a flame. Turning her gaze back to the crowd, she couldn't help but feel vulnerable, yet oddly empowered. I want each of you to think about what has been holding you back, she began. What if we shared our stories? What if we came together to brainstorm our dreams, our passions? We could form something real here, a community, a family. Murmurs spread throughout the crowd. Emily could see people nodding, glancing at each other, sharing silent conversations. This was the pulse of a change, an energetic shift that spoke of hope and possibility. It reached deep, resonating with the doubts and desires they all carried. One brave soul in the front row stood up, a young man with untamed hair and wide-eyed enthusiasm. I've always wanted to start a community garden, he blurted out, his voice tremulous yet full of excitement. Something to bring us together, to grow our own food and share. Another voice chimed in, a woman with a soft smile, I love that idea. And maybe we could host a marketplace, where local artisans share their work. It's about time we celebrated what we have instead of what we've lost. Emily felt her heart swell, each voice igniting the possibility of something bigger. Each idea fell like stones into a pond, creating ripples that spread through the crowd, bringing laughter and joy to a place that once felt stifled and stagnant. And then, amid the collective brainstorming, Emily's chest tightened suddenly, launching back to her past. She thought about the rejection she had faced, the bullying that had once made her feel small. What if I fail? The old fears whispered again, creeping into the edges of her joy. But as she looked around, the faces of her newfound supporters reminded her that she was no longer alone. With renewed vigor, Emily lifted her chin. This is only the beginning. She declared. We will fight for what we want. Together. Who's ready to take the first step? The energy was electric. Cheers erupted again, louder than before. People began to raise their hands, each voice joining in a cohesive chant of encouragement. We're with you. Let us do this. But as the cheers filled her ears, Emily couldn't shake the nagging question deep within her. What if the road ahead was far more treacherous than she could imagine? What if she was leading them towards a cliff she couldn't see? With that question hanging heavy in the air, she knew this journey was about to get complicated and she was terrified. But sometimes, the answers we seek come not from a place of certainty, but from the courage to step forward anyway. And that was just the first step. As Emily took a breath, the next challenge loomed on the horizon, waiting to reveal itself. What had she truly unleashed? The following day, Emily woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside her window. The sun flooded her room with light, but instead of warmth, it felt harsh, illuminating the fears she had tucked away. As she lay there, thoughts raced through her mind. What if today is the day I fail? The question nagged at her, threatening to drown out the excitement from the night before. She popped out of bed, shaking off the uncertainty. Today was different. Today was a chance to put those ideas into action. She pulled on a worn-out hoodie and grabbed her notebook, filled with the untamed dreams that had sparked in the crowd. Jotting down the ideas felt exhilarating, yet tangled with anxiety. Would they grow into something meaningful, or just fall flat? Emily stepped outside, the cool morning air biting at her skin. As she walked toward the community center, she spotted the young man from the night before, Danny, pacing nervously outside. His hair swished wildly in the breeze, and he bit his nails, eyes wide with anticipation. Hey, you! She called out, trying to lighten the mood. Ready to get this garden going? He turned, his face splitting into a grin. I've been thinking about it all night, but what if nobody shows up? What if it falls through? Then we try again, Emily replied, the conviction in her voice surprising even her. We can't let fear stifle our growth. Just like seeds, we need to push through the dirt to find the light. Danny chuckled, his fear easing a bit. I like that. As they entered the center, they were greeted by a handful of others. People who had felt the magic of the previous night. Emily's heart raced again, this time with anticipation rather than dread. Faces gathered, some familiar, others new, all ready to brainstorm what they might create together. They sat in a circle, and Emily felt the weight of their expectations settle on her shoulders. So, what's first? She asked, forcing herself to sound confident. Let us talk about how we want this garden to look. A woman named Sarah said, her voice brightening the atmosphere. What if we plant flowers for beauty and vegetables for purpose? A chorus of agreements echoed, and Emily felt hope swell in her chest. They flowed into discussion, each person pitching in their ideas. Piece by piece, they crafted a vision. But then thoughts of her past crept back like shadows. Doubts whispered too loudly. What if I can't lead them? What if something goes wrong? Yet she reminded herself of the older woman from the night before. Together, Emily said, raising her voice to weave a thread of determination into the mix. We can do this. We will do this. But I need everyone's trust. As the words hung in the air, a soft hand rested on her shoulder. It was the woman from the crowd. She stepped into the circle, confidence radiating from her. If I'm with you, so is everyone else. We believe in you. Tears blurred Emily's vision for a brief moment as the warmth of support enveloped her. But that fleeting moment of joy was eclipsed by the understanding that leadership meant exposing herself to the possibility of failure. An hour later, with plans in place and responsibilities assigned, the meeting came to a close. Everyone was buzzing with excitement. But as they trickled out, an unsettling thought settled again into the pit of Emily's stomach. Will they still believe in me when things get tough? Heading home, she overheard snippets of conversations from the team, laughter mixed with determination sending warmth through her once more. Yet, deep down, a voice echoed louder than before, but what if something happens that I can't control? The seed of fear was planted alongside their plans. She didn't know how to shake it, but she did know one thing: the journey would not be easy. As the day slid into dusk, Emily understood that unveiling her vulnerabilities and leading this group was just the beginning. What lay ahead would require more than just courage. It demanded resilience, and perhaps, a little magic of its own what awaited them in the weeks to come. Emily spent the evening replaying the day's events in her mind. As she retreated to her small kitchen, she heated up some leftover soup, stirring it absent-mindedly. Her gaze often drifted to the window, the streetlights flickering to life against the darkening sky. Was she really ready for this? When she finally settled at her kitchen table with a bowl of soup, snippets of laughter from the community center echoed in her ears. Each joyful voice had been a spark, igniting something inside her that she thought had dimmed long ago. For the first time in a while, she felt a connection, a possibility that didn't hinge on perfection or the fear of being left behind. The next morning brought a warm glow through her window, pushing back the shadows of doubt. Emily had promised herself that today would be different. Today, she would lead with purpose and heart. Clutching her notebook, she headed back to the community center, ready to transform uncertainty into action. Upon her arrival, Danny was already there, pacing again. "Hey! You're back." His eyes lit up. "I thought you might be scared off after yesterday." "I'm not going anywhere," she replied, a smile breaking across her face. "We've got work to do." Slowly, the rest of the team trickled in. At first, there was a lightness in the air as they bantered about their dreams for the garden. Each plan, each idea filled the room with hope. Emily felt the weight of their shared excitement and quickly became enveloped in it. "Let us sketch out the garden layout," she suggested, her voice full of energy. "We can do one section for flowers and another for veggies, right?" Sarah nodded, her hands lifting towards the whiteboard. As the group began to scrawl ideas, Emily felt a sense of ease settle in her chest. Everyone was contributing, adding layers to the vision they were creating together. Moments flowed into hours, the conversations turning from theory to actual steps: where to plant, when to water. Emily felt herself moving into a role she didn't know she could occupy, a leader, yes, but also a student of each voice in the circle. They were learning together, feeding off each other's enthusiasm. Yet, just as excitement surged, a shadow found a way to creep back. Emily's heart tightened when discussions turned toward supplies. "We're going to need donations," Danny stated, his brow furrowing. "What if we can't get enough? What if the local businesses don't want to help?" The room fell silent, doubt hanging in the air. Emily could feel it piercing through her newfound confidence. "If we reach out, if we ask, then we give ourselves a chance. If we don't, we'll never know." "Emily's right." Sarah chimed in, her voice firm. "Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith." The supportive murmurs grew, but Emily's heart raced. What if their asks fell flat? What if the rejection stung? Yet she couldn't bear the thought of being the one to crush their spirit. "Okay, then let us split up. We'll reach out to businesses and gather supplies. Together, we can show them what we've built so far." As they nodded, Emily felt the familiar stirring of hope. They were in this together, each fear part of an experience, each moment a building block. By the time the meeting wrapped up, the room was charged with renewed energy. As the group dispersed into the afternoon light, Emily lingered at the door. Danny came up beside her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "What's next?" It caught her off guard. She hadn't allowed herself to think beyond the immediate steps. But something inside her sparked with potential, an ember flickering to life. "Next," she said slowly, "I think we open our hearts to the challenges. Let the community surprise us." And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Emily realized the journey ahead would be filled with unknowns, challenges, and yes, even heartbreak. But with every passing day, she felt the tendrils of fear loosening their grip, and hope growing stronger. What awaited them next was more than just a garden, it was a chance to cultivate resilience, to taste the sweetness of community and to embrace whatever came their way. Would they find strength in the struggles ahead? Would they bloom together, or would the weeds of doubt take hold? The following day, the community center buzzed with the peculiar mix of anxiety and excitement. Emily was up early, cradling a steaming cup of coffee as she flipped through her notes. Each bullet point on the page represented a hope, a dream, or a tentative plan. Today was the day they'd start reaching out to local businesses for support. As she entered the center, she was greeted by the team's eager faces. Danny was pacing once again, but this time, his movements seemed more purposeful. "We need to make a list of places to contact," he announced, handing out sheets of paper. They all gathered around a large table, heads huddled together as they compiled names: local farms, hardware stores, even restaurants that might be willing to donate. Each suggestion was like a burst of energy, interspersed with laughter and a few light-hearted jabs. But Emily felt a tremor of uncertainty beneath her smile. What if they didn't hear back? What if those in charge turned them away? "Okay, I think we're ready," Sarah exclaimed, breaking Emily from her thoughts. "Let's split into pairs. I'll go with Danny, and Emily, you can team up with Neil." Emily swallowed hard but nodded, trying to mask her growing anxiety. Neil was newer to the group, quiet and sometimes unsure of himself, but there was a flicker of potential that Emily had seen. They stepped outside to brainstorm their pitch. As they walked, Emily looked around at the neighborhood. The vibrant murals splashed on nearby buildings, the little park across the street, the worn benches where kids sometimes lingered after school, all of it spoke of hope and community. It felt like a living foundation for their dreams. "So, do you have any ideas on what to say?" Neil asked, his hands stuffed deep into his pockets. Emily shrugged, heart racing. She could already imagine being turned away, the disappointment constricting her chest. "Maybe we focus on how this garden isn't just about plants. It's about bringing everyone together, creating something beautiful for all of us." A faint smile broke across Neil's face. "I like that. People respond to community spirit." As they stood at the first business, a little bookstore with a cozy vibe, Emily felt herself hesitate. "I don't know, what if they don't believe in our vision?" she whispered, her inner doubt surfacing. Neil rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Remember, we're not just asking for donations. We're offering them a chance to be part of something bigger. We're creating connections, like you said." Taking a deep breath, Emily nodded. With a flick of her wrist, she brushed away the nerves that now felt familiar. They walked in, the scent of old pages bathing them in nostalgia. A woman behind the counter smiled, curious about the duo's purpose. "Hi. We're starting a community garden and wanted to see if you'd be interested in supporting our project," Emily said, her voice stronger than she felt. The woman raised an eyebrow, and Emily hoped she saw the spark of interest. They chatted for a while about the vision, sharing pieces of their plans. As they left the store, Emily exhaled deeply. "That wasn't so bad, right?" she laughed, trying to convince herself. "Not at all. Plus, she seemed interested." Neil replied, grinning widely. Bolstered by that small victory, the day rolled on. Each visit held its own mix of affirmations, challenges, and a few surprising moments of kindness. Business owners opened up, some reminiscing about the very community center where Emily had first found her courage. As the sun began to set, illuminating the streets in hues of orange and pink, Emily felt a thrill surge through her. They had collected not only pledges of support but stories, laughter, and shared hopes. That evening, she returned home, exhausted yet exhilarated. She sat down with her notebook, jotting down thoughts, everything swirling in her mind. Tomorrow, they would have a meeting to discuss their progress, and as much as she felt buoyed by their success, a creeping dread lingered. Against the wave of optimism, what would happen to the garden if they faced setbacks? Would the community stand strong if the challenges grew heavier? As dusk settled around her, Emily realized it was time to face the next challenge: how to ensure they could withstand the storms that were bound to come. Would their growth be sturdy enough to weather the trials ahead, or might they crumble under the weight of expectation? The next morning, Emily woke up feeling the weight of the day ahead. The room was still dim, the early light barely filtering through her curtains. She rubbed her eyes, trying to shake off the lingering worries from last night. But as she rose, those worries were tangled with excitement. Today was all about reflecting on the successes, but also readying for any challenges that might arise. At the community center, the energy was palpable. The team had gathered, coffee cups in hand, animatedly discussing their visits from the previous day. Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her when she noticed how enthusiastic everyone was. Danny was at the front, already outlining the progress on a whiteboard, scribbling down names of supporters like badges of honor. Everyone showed interest. Danny announced, his voice echoing in the room. "We've got more potential donations than we anticipated." Cheers erupted, and Emily found herself swept up in the moment. Neil caught her eye and grinned, his own triumph resonated with her. She felt as if they were building something incredible together, piece by piece, like a puzzle slowly revealing a beautiful image. However, as they discussed each contact, the nervous flicker in Emily's chest returned. What if some of these businesses retract their offers? Or worse, what if we end up with no garden? She asked, trying to inject caution into the excitement. The room fell quiet. Different faces turned toward her with varying expressions of concern. It took a moment before Sarah spoke up. "Emily, every garden starts from a seed. We have to trust in our roots. This is about growing together, not just offering a product." Emily could feel the truth in Sarah's words, but her doubts felt heavy nonetheless. She wanted to believe they could forge ahead, to put their stamp on the neighborhood, but fear danced at the edges of her thoughts. Their brainstorming flowed into planning a detailed approach to how they would engage with the community and regain momentum if they faced setbacks. They discussed events, potential workshops, and even partnerships with local schools. The discussions crackled with ideas like fireworks in the night sky, illuminating their possibility. Yet, a part of Emily couldn't help but imagine the slow steps forward and the harsh realities that could come at them like sudden storms. What if they failed to engage enough people? Or what if one of their supporters changed their mind? Those were not just should-have-beens but could-be-will-best. They began to wrap up the meeting. Emily stood with her heart thudding loudly in her chest. It was time to confront their fears head-on and build a strategy for when the winds of doubt blew through their garden plans. Let's set up a follow-up plan. Like an emergency fund for when we stutter on support, she suggested, her voice shaky but firm. "Brilliant," Neil said, looking approvingly at her. "We're not just planting seeds, we're making sure they have water when they need it." Emily couldn't help but smile at that. Maybe it wouldn't always be easy, but they were in this together. As the meeting concluded, Emily lingered to gather her things. The door swung open, and a local news reporter walked in, a bright light reflecting off her camera equipment. She was here to cover their story. "Hi there. I heard about your community garden plans and wanted to know more. Would you be willing to give a quick interview?" Emily's heart raced. This was a chance to share their vision, to rally the community around their growing dream. But she felt her mouth dry up as the spotlight turned towards her. This was not just about asking for support anymore, it was about revealing their dreams and vulnerabilities to the world. Would they be ready for the scrutiny it might bring, or would they find strength in being seen? With uncertainty swirling in her mind, Emily took a deep breath, ready to step into the light. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the reporter adjusted her camera and began to frame her shot. For a brief moment, everything around her faded into a blur. The lively chatter of her teammates, the clinking of coffee cups, even the afternoon sunlight filtering through the windows, all of it felt distant as the pressure of the moment settled on her shoulders. "Just relax," she whispered to herself. "It's just sharing your story." But the words felt hollow, echoing against her rising pulse. What if she fumbled her words? What if the community's expectations rested too heavily on her? The reporter's bright smile cut through her thoughts. Hi. I'm Jenna. We want to capture the energy you've created here. How has this community garden dream come together? Emily cleared her throat, summoning the strength to speak. Well, it started as a way to connect people, a place where families can come together to grow and learn. But it's also become something deeper. Her voice wavered slightly, but as she spoke, she could sense her teammates leaning in, faces eager and supportive. A bit of courage stirred within her. And what's your biggest challenge so far? Jenna pressed, her pencil ready to jot down notes. Emily felt a flood of honesty. Honestly, it's the worry about sustaining interest and support. We need everyone to come together and really believe in this. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. It was true their project had its roots, but everyone knew a garden also needed nurturing. But, she continued, we're committed. We're planning events, workshops, and getting local schools involved. Our goal is to make this a community effort, not just ours. Jenna nodded, a spark in her eyes. That's inspirational. So, what's next on your agenda? Emily paused. There it was, the door had opened, and she felt that familiar mix of fear and excitement wash over her again. She looked at her team, the people who had been there through every doubt and every cheer. Next, we're planning a volunteer day to kick things off. We want everyone to see the vision and contribute. It's a way to involve the community from the very beginning. Brilliant! Jenna exclaimed, capturing her enthusiasm on camera. And can you tell me how this experience has changed you personally? That question hit differently. Emily had wandered through emotions over the past weeks, from uncertainty to exhilaration, and now to the calm of purpose. It's taught me about resilience, I guess. When I started, I was scared of failure. But now, she smiled, resolution in her voice, I've learned that if we don't try, we will never grow. And that's what we want, a safe space for everyone to cultivate their dreams, in whatever way that looks for them. The applause erupted from her teammates. Emily beamed, not just at the support, but at how easily her fears had melted. Perhaps sharing the vision wouldn't feel as daunting as she imagined. Instead, it felt like forging connections with everyone watching. After the interview, Jenna thanked her and promised to cover the upcoming volunteer day. The weight on Emily's shoulders felt a little lighter. But then a persistent thought crawled back into her mind, would they follow through? Would the community show up? As the day wound down, Emily stepped outside, the sun setting softly against the backdrop of their ambitious plans. She could already picture it, families digging in the dirt, laughter echoing around the garden, and all the new faces becoming a part of their story, but that tugging fear still clung to her heart. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she pulled it out to see a message from Neil, asking if they could talk later. The urgency in his words made her stomach flutter with uncertainty. What if it was about setbacks or problems looming ahead? Taking a deep breath, she texted back that she would meet him soon. As she prepared to head home, that nagging feeling whispered again, louder this time, could this dream really come true, or were they staring at an impossible task? With questions swirling in her mind, Emily moved forward, not knowing whether they were on the brink of success or a sobering reality. What awaited her on the other side of that conversation with Neil could change everything. Emily awoke the next day to a world washed in golden light. The sun cascaded through her window, illuminating her small room. Yet, instead of the usual warmth, a heavy anxiety settled in her chest. Today, everything hinged on the volunteer day launch. With every step toward the community center, she felt the weight of expectations pressed down. As she entered, the familiar buzz of her team enveloped her like a warm hug. They were already buzzing with excitement, hanging decorations and gathering supplies. But as she took it all in, dread seeped in again. What if it all fell apart? As if reading her mind, Danny stepped closer, his grin infectious. Are you ready for today, Emily? She took a shaky breath. As ready as I can be. Trust me, you've got this, he said, and she found solace in his words. But just as the day began rolling forward, Neil walked in, a serious expression etched on his face. He motioned for Emily to step aside. "Can we talk?" Her heart raced. "Sure, what's up?" "It's about the materials we requested. Some businesses are backing out." Panic clawed at her gut. "How many?" "2. Maybe 3. I'm working on it, but it's not good." That familiar tightness gripped her heart. "What do we do?" she asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "I think we might need to scale back. Maybe hold off on the volunteer day." Staring into his eyes, fear pulsed through her. "No. We can't, Emily, that might be the smart move." "Smart isn't what this is about. It's about taking that leap and trusting the community will jump with us." Neil hesitated. "But what if they don't? Then we face it together or figure out what's next as a team. We've come too far to back down now." With a slow nod, Neil's uncertainty softened, his resolve alongside hers sparking an undeniable connection. Meanwhile, as the starting time approached, the center transformed into a kaleidoscope of activity. Families began to trickle in, murmurs of excitement slicing through the tension in Emily's chest. Finally, her moment arrived. She gathered everyone together, heart racing, stomach churning. "Today isn't just about a garden, it's about building something together." The audience leaned in, eyes sparkling with anticipation. She felt the fire inside her, igniting her voice. "When I stood here weeks ago, I could hardly imagine anyone would believe in my vision. But look around. This is more than just one idea. We're weaving our individual dreams into a stronger tapestry. Today, we show up for ourselves, for one another." Cheers erupted and echoed against the walls. For a moment, that weight of doubt from earlier lifted, and all she could see were Smile's happiness in action. As they broke into teams, digging shovels into soil, laughter and chatter lit up the space. Emily dug beside Danny, their hands sweaty and covered in dirt, but joy radiated between them. "I never thought I'd love gardening so much," he shouted over the noise, beaming. At that moment, the air felt electric, ripples of unity stretching through the community. Suddenly, Emily spotted a few familiar faces, old classmates who had once snubbed her. They seemed different now, engaged in the work with passion and sincerity. Mirroring their actions, she felt hope tugging at her once tightly held fears. Hours passed, and the project blossomed metaphorically and physically. They planted seeds, shared stories, and laughter bloomed in the air like flowers breaking through the cracks of concrete. Emily smiled as she took a step back, taking in the sight the once empty lot now alive and vibrant. But then she heard a shout from across the area. "Hey! We're running out of dirt." Panic flared inside her once more, but instead of collapsing, she called out. "Everyone! Let us adapt. We need to collaborate." The crowd murmured, then conversation sparked. "We could shift to making raised beds. Use what we have." In that fluid moment filled with shared ingenuity, Emily felt a tidal wave of exhilaration. They weren't just a group of volunteers, they were a community innovative, empowered, ready to move forward together. As the day wound down into golden twilight, Emily looked up to see her team come closer. A soft voice broke through the chatter, "We should do this again. Let's make this garden part of our lives." "A community garden forever," Danny added, eyes gleaming with potential. Her heart swelled at their enthusiasm, the vision she had once dreamed of ignited within her and the community their community. "Together, we can transform not just this space but how we see one another." We've started something special today. With renewed energy, she felt overwhelming gratitude wash over her. They had turned fear into resilience, isolation into connection. In her heart, Emily finally felt an embrace of belonging. It was more than the garden, it was the journey back to herself, a transformation built on trust, kindness, and shared dreams. As laughter danced into the air, she couldn't help but whisper to herself, "This is just the beginning." And so, the sun dipped below the horizon, a beautiful mixture of hope and wonder painting the twilight sky. Emily looked upon her newfound family, and for the first time, she truly believed together, they could blossom. Your story can start here. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. Comment below with your thoughts on this journey of transformation, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible story unfold. Don't wait not even one more second to support the channel. You need to be part of this amazing community.